Go.
All right. Good morning. My name is Pastor Mario Sims. I have with me one of the congregation members of our church. Maybe right now, step away and answer your phone. And this is Pastor Pat Allen of the DeLong Lighthouse Church in DeLong, Indiana. A great friend, great man of God, and has been a supporter. I'll get right to the point by reading you why we're here today. And as I read this, I want you to think about two controlling principles. One is the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which requires equal application of the law by all government entities. South Bend, of course, is a government entity. It exists solely on tax money. The other principle is the 13th, Romans 13 in the Bible, which calls all elected officials ministers of justice. And so, without further ado, I want to read why we're here. I'm reading from a letter that was dated September 1st, 2021, and it was sent to the Indiana Civil Rights Commission. And it says, Doulos Chapel Incorporated is owned by Pastor Mario Sims and his wife Tiffany. Both are Black American citizens who are Protestants. Doulos Chapel is a Protestant church dedicated to serving the homeless and needy that was granted both a 501c3 and the Indiana tax exemption in 2013. In 2013, Mario Sims and his wife went to open a water account with the city of South Bend for Doulos Chapel and duly presented both the 501c3 Indiana tax exemption certifications to the person at the South Bend Water Company began service. We were instructed that although we were a church, the account must be open in the person's name, but would be listed for billing purposes as a church institution. All subsequent water bills clearly show under the account detail location type as a church institution. Indiana non-for-profits are exempt from Indiana sales tax on water. Initially, Indiana used a ST 109 NP P&G and then moved on to a S200 or tax roll 200. In August of 2020, after 7 years of city water service, and each of these 7 years we paid our water bill on time, the city was charging tax on the water bill. We immediately contacted our city councilman and advised him of the issue. He contacted the city water department. In response, Eric Horvath represented the city water department, sent us a detail which stated we must submit a form 109 NP and G, and the name on the account it has to be changed to the church name. We submitted the ST 109 NP and G to Eric Horvath. Even after submitting the form ST 109 NP and G to Horvath and advising Horvath via email, the account already shows us to be a church/institution. And the water department opened the account that way. The city refused to stop charging the tax. Since 2013, you should know that the city has had a pattern of practice of discrimination and harassment of Doulos Chapel. In 2016, South Bend police officers and a state police officer showed up at the church demanding to be allowed to enter the church because they had been told by a Tracy Lilliard there was a meth lab in the church. There was no meth lab in the church. Tracy Lilliard was never charged with false informing. In fact, she now works for the organization, the Catholic Workers, who operate Motels for Now program. More on that in a minute. The city also sent 5 inspectors in one day to inspect the church, which is not a standard practice, and was done solely to harass. They found nothing in the church. The water department has overbilled the church and had to credit the overbilling after my wife discovered it. The city has given funds and favors for warming centers and other homeless housing solely to one Catholic institution, the Catholic Workers, Arlington Roads, while denying equal access to Doulos Chapel for providing the same services. There are numerous other accounts of this type of discrimination that can be documented. We let the city know in 2020 that we were disputing all billings from the city water department and will withhold payment until the taxes withheld are property credit and taxes no longer withheld. We're demanding a refund of taxes collected for it to be applied to the church account for the harassment to end and for them to zero the balance that has accumulated since 2020. Now, it's important to understand this. A lot of people believe that when the church water has been shut off for a week, that it's just a simple matter of us not paying our bills. We paid our bills for 7 years, all along objecting to the state, to the city charging us tax, even though they fully knew that we were a non-for-profit, that the state has determined we're a non-for-profit, that the federal government has determined us a non-for-profit, and the county has determined us a non-for-profit. To defend their refusal to comply by listing us as a non-for-profit, they simply lied. The most recent lie that was told to us yesterday in an email from Councilwoman Lori Heyman was that because we bought the church in a land contract, that tax exemption doesn't apply for a nonprofit. There's nowhere in city code to that fact. We were never asked to present a land contract to begin with when we opened the account, and this is just a new lie they're using to try and justify what they're doing. I mean, think of it like this. Can you imagine you as a homeowner being told by the Internal Revenue you can't take your property tax exemption until you've paid your mortgage off in 30 years? That's absurd. There is no requirement with regard to ownership of the property. What is required is for the nonprofit to have a tax exemption for it. That's all. We are a tax-exempt corporation. Wherever we operate the church and operate Doulos Chapel, it is tax-exempt because the state, the county, and the federal government is so. Now, there are larger issues here. Before I address those, I'm going to show you, we received, this is our 501c3. Where the federal government has determined we're tax exempt. This is from the Indiana Secretary of State, which shows Doulos Chapel Incorporated, a domestic nonprofit, and we've been a nonprofit since 3/25/2013. The city has refused during this period of time from 2013 up until recently to put the bill in the church name, which is good. That's a start. They've also agreed to stop charging us tax, but they haven't agreed to remediate the close to $5,000 in bills that's accumulated since 2020, since we began protesting the bills. Now, a lot of people want to say you should just pay your bill. Well, the reality is we paid our bill for 7 years. If you do the math, if there's $5,000 owed to the city, divide $5,000 into 24 months, and you'll see that would be approximately a $200 a month water bill. It's not a water bill that's accumulated from 2013. We have paid our bills. In fact, some of our bills were very high because we were housing the homeless and had people living in the church. We haven't done that for over the last 2 years, so our water bill has gone down. But I want to show you, Tiffany, I don't know how to hit the play. If you could do that for me.
Well, you got to turn it back on.
Okay. I want to show you something that is even more problematic here.
Hit enter.
Here's a news story of Sheila McCarthy, who at one time owned the home next to, this is May 17, 2019. Now, why is this important? Well, Sheila McCarthy is the executive director of the Motels for Now program. The city has given the Motels for Now program in excess of $8 million to house the homeless.
A South Bend homeless family now has to replace all of their belongings after they say someone threw a bucket of urine and fecal matter on their tent. It's a story
It's just a sickening story. The couple had been displaced because they were living at what was called South Bend's Tent City. They were allowed to move here at the little chapel, but now someone threw human waste on their tent.
I thought we were in a better community. I thought we had better people.
It's a discovery that no one wants to make. The waste was allegedly from a neighbor who tossed buckets of excrement out of the window onto the tent below. Wayne Hubbard was headed to a meeting next door at Delos Chapel. He saw the incident and began recording.
My reaction was to keep everybody calm and make sure everybody could find out what she did, because I believe in the group.
The mess has since been cleaned up, but for Clarence Armand and his wife Tanya, the search is on for a new place to stay.
I have 4 copies already. I can't be breathing the ammonia smell from it. I just can't.
I went next door to try and speak with them, but there was no response.
And high anxiety, depression issues, that symptoms that was overhead.
Hubbard tells
Now, you should know that this home at the time was owned by Sheila McCarthy. Remember, I cited the 14th Amendment, equal treatment. Sheila McCarthy now, who was never been charged for throwing the fecal matter and the urine onto the homeless couple on church property. In fact, she has been given over $8 million, orchestrated by City Councilwoman Lori Hammond, so she could house the homeless in the Motels for Now program. Now, we don't have a problem with people being funded housing the homeless, but this was a no-bid contract that was given specifically to one institution, headed by a woman that has violated the law and should have been charged criminally, but because of favoritism in the city didn't. Yet the city says that they refuse to zero our balance, even though they know that they charge us improperly. This is ridiculous. I don't know if anybody, if you want to comment, Pastor Pat or Pam, you've been at the church for a while. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are. I'm just angered by this. And you know, it's just so crazy because, as you know, all we tried to do was serve the homeless community. That's it. This is insane. I don't know. If there's any comments, any questions, Tiffany, is there anything you want to weigh in?
It just shows that there's discrimination, most definitely, with the unfair treatment that we have received since 2013. We're not treated like other churches or other entities that care for the homeless or the needy.
And you know what's so crazy is we have an absentee mayor. The mayor has not weighed in on this at all. 9 city council people have just sat there. We've had Kenneth Lee reach out to us and offer some insane justification for what was going on. Pastor, you got to pay your water bill. We pay our water bill. We paid our water bill for 7 years. What you should be doing, Pastor Kenneth Lee, is making sure as a minister of justice that, according to Romans 13, controlled by the 14th Amendment, that the city is treating this church the same way that the city is following both state and federal law with regard to us being a not-for-profit. We've proven that from the very beginning. There's no justification for the city to have put this church water bill, and no one else has done that. We have electric bill service, and it's certainly much more than the water bill because we have a 50,000 square foot facility. In some cases, we paid up to $1,800 in 1 month for electric bill service. We don't have a problem paying our bills. We have a problem when we show you we're non-for-profit and you ignore us. You know, and then I had a pastor tell me today that he talked to Lori Hammonds, and she said, well, I was told not to help Pastor Sims because he'd get angry. This is not an option of you helping me because of your fear of an emotion. This is a responsibility you have as an elected official, as 9 elected officials, and as a mayor to follow the law, apply the law equally, and not treat this church differently according to the documentation we've showed. And certainly don't give $8 million to a religious organization, non-bid, no bid, who's committed a crime. In fact, you
Several.
have several crimes. Tracy Lilliard, who made the false claim of the meth lab, should have been charged with false reporting. She wasn't. She's profiting from the $8 million. Folks, there's a city election coming this year. This 9 city council people and this mayor have shown this church. Now keep in mind, this church was cited by the city council 2 years ago. We were given a resolution for our work housing the homeless. But it's the same 9 members and the same mayor that is totally ignored following the law and upholding, all of them claim to be Christians, upholding their Christian responsibility to do justice. We're going to come to the next city council meeting at every, this is a city election, every time one of the 9 council people and the mayor shows up at a campaign event, I'll be there with signs pointing out the injustice and discriminatory conduct. That's all I've got. If you have any questions, please put them on the bottom of this post, or you can also call me. We're also going to load this up to YouTube and get this out to the media throughout the country. Thank you very much for tuning in. Pray for us. God bless you.